Welcome back to RotoMoto. My name is Donnie. This video is sponsored by O'Neal, and in this one I have 4 penalties to discuss from Ironman, as well as a very highly contested non-penalty from the weekend. Stick around to the end of the video to find out how you could win this autograph race-worn Phil Nicoletti jersey. But let's get right into Ironman. The first one of the day is a pretty non-issue from a penalty standpoint. Hunter Calle lost his fastest time in the first session of 250B, qualifying for cutting sections 7 through 11, which no way he was fooling anyone with that, as this would have had him miss a checkpoint entirely, so it was likely a mistake or a crash, and it was just easier for him to re-enter on the other side of the track rather than start climbing that hill from a dead stop. Not this close is the fastest time that was lost, but it likely wouldn't have mattered. Hunter qualified 71st on the day, a full 7 seconds off the top 36, so other than a few spots better in gate pick for the consolation, this just feels like a formality on the report. All right, the 2 most obvious ones, as they were caught on the broadcast, came in the first 250 moto with Justin Cooper and Hunter Lawrence both jumping with wheels on the ground flag being waved. As the riders jump from the top of the monster hill at Ironman, just behind them is Pro Circuit Kawasaki's Joe Shimoda, who does check up and obey the flag. Both Cooper and Lawrence were docked 2 championship points, but no positions, which is customary for this type of offense. However, it is interesting that they both lose 2 points here when a similar penalty at Thunder Valley saw Sexton and Roczen only lose a single point. Regardless, this is a clean cut and dry penalty, but it is worth noting, as they do on the broadcast, that the flag may have come out a bit late, not giving either rider the proper time to slow down before they launched off the top of that mountain. And even if they did, this is not the type of jump that you want to hesitate before hitting it. So yes, deserved penalty, although I don't fault either rider for this instance. The ramifications don't really affect Cooper at all. This is a points-only penalty, and it can be touchy because it's easy to blanket across that we dock points for this kind of infraction. That way we don't have to reshuffle overalls or anything like that. But Cooper is perma-locked into 4th place in the points. He's more than 50 behind Lawrence for 3rd, and he's 60 ahead of RJ in 5th. This means nothing to him, and likely won't really teach him any kind of lesson here, as he did not lose a position. He didn't lose any purse money. He likely didn't lose any sort of bonus. But Hunter, on the other hand, who was fighting with Joe Shimoda for 2nd in the championship, saw what would be a 5-point deficit grow to a 7-point deficit. And it may not seem like much, but without the penalty, Hunter could go 1-1 this weekend and overtake Joe regardless of what Shimoda is able to do in the motos. But now he needs help. Even if he sweeps both motos on the day, he would still need his brother or another rider to finish between them to overtake the Pro Circuit rider in the points if they want to get HRC 1-2 in those final standings. And the final penalty of the day before we get to the non-penalty situation is without footage, but it has been much publicized already. Jason Anderson was docked in the second 450 moto for failure to slow down when off track for a loss of 1 position. Again, this is pretty standard for this type of infraction, as it's customary to lose a position in addition to any positions your off-track excursion may have gained. Since it's just a single position penalty, that suggests that Anderson did not overtake anyone in the section that he was off. The report does not mention which section it is, and thus his 3rd place moto finish ends up a 4th. Which, unlike Cooper's situation, could matter, as Jason no doubt has a podium bonus structure worked into his contract. Never deterred, however, Jason Anderson reshared a post from MX Reference pointing out every time El Hombre has been penalized for cutting the track in his career, which amounts to 9 times total and 8 in the last 5 seasons. Jason added, quote, "That's only the 9 that they saw," which I'm sure is meant to be tongue-in-cheek, but I think we all know there's probably a little bit of truth in there somewhere. And finally, the non-penalty that seems the community is a bit on blaze about. In the first 450 moto of the day, Chase Sexton was furiously trying to chase down Eli for the lead after a 10th place start had him buried early. And at one point, with just fractions of a second between them, he comes into the hairpin turn at track marker 16 and gets a bit wild before his bike points at a tree that marks the inside of the corner. To avoid hitting the tree, Chase shades to the inside, gets by the obstacle, and continues on his way. The first thing to point out is that he clearly cut the track. There is no denying that. But the second part of that track cutting rule is that the rider must re-enter at the next safest point. And in this instance, the safest thing for him to do was to simply continue on his way. He did not gain a lasting advantage in this situation, as his split gap before the incident was 1.15 seconds behind Tomac, and the split gap after was 1.189. Did he save more time cutting inside the tree than having to stop, turn around, and re-enter from that exact spot that he exited? Sure. No one's gonna dispute that, but it would obviously be incredibly unsafe for Sexton at the time he finally regains control of the bike to stop, do a 180 in the middle of the next straightaway into oncoming traffic, and safely re-enter at the spot he exited, with riders jumping into that corner similar to how he did. Sexton goes on to catch and pass Tomac a few minutes later in the moto, and I think if Chase holds on to that moto victory and ends up 1-1 on the day, with the points lead, Eli and Star Racing Yamaha would have been putting a ton of heat on MX Sports and the AMA to get a penalty applied, but with Sexton ultimately ending second, that's where he would have been anyway, even if he would have had the room to stop, turn around, and re-enter, because Aaron Plessinger finished a whopping 30 seconds behind both of those guys in third. This is a penalty that could have gone either way, and I imagine that the fan base would be split pretty 50-50 on it, depending on if you're a Chase fan or perhaps a Tomac fan, but I think a non-penalty is the right call here, if nothing else because it keeps the title fight more interesting going into the finale at Paula this weekend. If Sexton would have been docked to position, that would put Eli up 3 points, but instead they go into the finale with just a single point between the two, which is practically a tie since Eli holds the tiebreak anyway with 12 moto wins to Chase's 8 going into finale. But let me ask you, do you think Chase should have been penalized in this instance, as it was technically a black and white cutting of the markers? Or do you think it's better that they use that discretion and involved a little bit of context that may be required for this sort of infraction, especially considering the safety implications of him turning around to return to the spot of the foul? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe to RotoMoto for more breaking news and analysis like this. The #1 way to get more eyes on the channel is to tell a platform that this video was a good one. And if you value the content that I put out and you want to support me even further, please consider joining me over on Patreon for just about $1 per week. You help me continue to make this content for you. However, you are entered to win race shoes and autographed memorabilia from your favorite riders. The month of September will see this race-worn autographed Phil Nicoletti jersey going to a supporter over on Patreon, and I would love to have you over there. Thank you, as always, for watching RotoMoto. My name is Donnie. Keep it pinned to the weekend.